Hi, and welcome to Innovatus's Practical Ideas for Growth. I am excited to have Christian Moises with me today, and more importantly, to share with the world, in case you missed the announcement, that Christian has recently joined our team. So, welcome, Christian. We're excited to have you on the team, and I'm even more excited to have you join me for this conversation today.
I'm really excited to be here with Innovatus and talking about content, which has, always been near and dear to my heart.
Absolutely. And we love content here too. It's been a plentiful year for content with all the COVID legislation and relief options. I think that, I don't remember a time in our history or accounting marketing that we've had this much content, and it's probably been this easy to fill our content calendars, so to speak, for marketing professionals. Most firms that I know have increased their communications with clients, via social media, via email marketing, webinars. The last year really threw a lot of firms into some things that either they were thinking about, maybe they had dipped their toe in the water. Some of them had been doing it fairly regularly, and others, this was a huge launch. The other thing that we saw with content this year was that a lot of firms, I think, recognized the value, and the clients recognized the value of the content because they were getting a lot of feedback. And so I know one of the conversations that you and I have been having, and what prompted this topic today, was how do firms continue the momentum that they've built, and what does that look like as we move beyond COVID news? How do we take what we've built, what the firms have been doing, and go beyond that, continue to offer value, and how do we keep that up?
Yeah.
So to speak.
To your point, you're exactly right. I knew a lot of firms that, had never done a webinar before COVID, which obviously is one of the many ways to get content out. A lot of them had never really even done email blasts from a content perspective. The firms that were doing content, some of them, the average rate was probably around an 8 to 10% open rate for email, newsletter, e-blasts. Now at least in the early parts of COVID, you were seeing anywhere from 30 to 50% open rates. So firms have kind of set that expectation of, hopefully they saw that huge jump in open rates as saying our clients want to hear from us, and they look to us to give them the news and information that they need, and that we're going to boil it down to what they need to make better decisions. So you're right. How do we keep that going as legislation starts to kind of, hopefully wane, as we hopefully can put COVID in the rearview mirror? You want to keep that engagement with your clients around. Is it a monthly newsletter? Is it bi-weekly newsletter? Is it updating your subscriber form to hit all your niches? You got to figure out something that's going to keep that flow of communication and content going. I am encouraged. I see a lot of firms, because they adapted and embraced the webinar format, especially as we move into a hybrid business development world of in-person or virtual networking and connection. We're going to see a lot more of that, but we got to keep it going, because you've built that expectation. We have to keep it. And the firms that are going to keep it, goes without saying, it's pretty obvious they are going to see those benefits.
Well, and I think, to your point, not only are clients opening and clicking on articles at a higher rate than they ever had before, I think what we're hearing from the clients too is the gratitude that this was helpful. And I don't think that we always hear from clients back on our content. And so for a long time, I would watch firms say, well, why are we doing this, right? And I think for a long time, it used to just be for external marketing, missing the really big picture that our content is first and foremost for our clients. And secondarily, there's this added benefit of bringing others, right? Prospects, folks that we don't know, the external marketing and business development support side of this. And so I think COVID really just brought that to light. I think anybody that's been doing marketing for any length of time probably has recognized that. But I don't think that recognition has been more solidified than it has in what we've seen this year with firms, and understanding that this is truly part of a client service strategy as much as it is about an external marketing strategy and building brand awareness with your market and giving you ways to nurture some of those things. And so that's the exciting part. I think the challenge now in front of is what are some things that firms need to be doing? I remember 6 months ago, 8 months ago, firms and marketers asking the question, when do we move beyond COVID related articles? And I think a lot of them have done that, but I still sense this uncertainty of wanting to put other information out into the marketplace, and when is it appropriate, right? And what does that look like today going forward? Because while I don't think we'll exactly put COVID behind us, I do believe that this is just, as we go forward, this just is the environment. And so, how do we balance that? So much has been written for most firms on anything legislative related to COVID, but now I personally anticipate that there's going to be a whole wealth of um, different things that have been put on hold as a result, audit regulations changes, things that have been delayed, implementation that's been delayed. All of that's going to start to come up. And then so that balanced with what else our market should be caring about or does care about that we should be talking about.
Right. And that, it's funny. I want to go back real quick to talk about the gratitude. And that is something I remember shortly after the CARES Act came out back in, what was that, May or April, May last year. We were getting emails at my previous firm of thank you so much. And, we talked about client service. It's a great marketing opportunity too, because those same clients that were thanking us were asking us, can we please send this to our clients or our customers? So it's definitely a dual purpose. To your point, kind of about that balance, you're right. About 6 or 8 months ago, on a couple of marketing forums that I belong to, we were talking about, when can we get back to normal of sharing promotion announcements? Is it tone deaf? Do people still want to hear COVID? And I think you're absolutely right. There's so many opportunities, relief opportunities out there still with the employee retention credit, with the restaurant revitalization grants. There's just so much confusing information for the average client and business owner to process that it is still as important for us to put those legislative updates out there. However, to your point, and we're seeing it more and more every day, you're getting more comfortable kind of dipping your toes back into the water to get back into a regular content calendar, whether you do a standing meet your team or meet your industry, learn more about our industry every Thursday. We're kind of moving past 100% COVID related content, and that's going to be important. But if you were doing 3 or 5 posts during COVID, you're going to kind of want to maintain that expectation to stay ahead. And to your point again about the appreciation, hopefully firms are starting to see if they adopted this early in the process with all this open communication. I kind of had the approach of clients are going to remember who was there for them during this time. And if you were openly communicating regularly, they're going to remember that in the long term. Mm-hmm. And if you're constantly communicating ahead of what's coming out or as soon as it comes out, they're going to know that you're on top of it and you're there to help them. So we got to continue to do that and meet that expectation.
Absolutely. I think the other thing too is it's about the content. And, COVID has been very timely. We use this term in marketing all the time, timely versus evergreen. And evergreen really just means that there's not a finite end to when that is applicable. Whereas, new legislation comes out and you've got a window for how long that's applicable, right? And so, not to say that stuff isn't valuable, it absolutely is, but it's usually based on that person's scenario. And I think that one of the things that we're seeing and we've heard is that accounting firms have an important role or can play an important role in helping businesses transform. And COVID has exacerbated so much of business transformation, technology adoption, and how we do business today. And so being able to address that content in those issues with your buyers, your clients, that becomes really important. And I think that's where some of this evergreen, and I'll be honest, we look back at our content, we look back at our clients' content, and it's almost all timely for the last year. Very little evergreen has been written. And that's where, if you were to look at that previous to COVID, I think so much of the content was evergreen. And there's this opportunity for firms to go back to that, and it'll continue to sort of be that balance, but addressing those main issues that firms have through some of that evergreen type content.
Yeah, 14 months ago seems like a lifetime, right? We've
Yeah.
all been through the ringer, but you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of the content we were doing before was so evergreen. And when we talk about evergreen, you mean stuff like, a perfect example comes to my mind was you think back on the Aretha Franklin issue when she passed away and there was no will, um, or there was no reported will. There were a lot of estate planning practices that latched onto that to say, here's why it's important that you have estate planning as part of your strategies. Perfect example of evergreen. Estate planning is estate planning. There's always going to be nuances, state, federal legislation that changes that. But for the most part, setting up your estate, it is what it is. So those are the kind of evergreen articles you can go back to. Business formation, obviously things have changed over time because of regulations. But if you are keeping track of your content when you post it, obviously you can go back and review what you were posting in 2019, even up till COVID hit in 2020. If repository, you're going to want to start doing that. And that serves multiple purposes. We can talk about that at a later point. If you roll over to a new website, it makes it easier to port over all your content previously. But again, it's just good to track it so that you can go back. If you're short on time, which many accounting firms are, it's always good to be able to recycle that. One that I know that we do with marketing, popular things or content, how to write good content, how to give good presentations, how to create a very engaging PowerPoint. These things change, but you already have the structure of that blog and that content ready to go that just needs a brush up.
Absolutely. And Christian, I could not, I love that you talk about the blog repository, right? We use that in our work quite a bit with our clients. But there's an important component of this that I don't want to kind of skip over, and that is the repurposing. We have sort of a rule of thumb here where it makes sense. You don't do this for every piece of content, but for your best content, we try to use that three different ways wherever we can, whether that is on social media. You might take a really solid blog topic and turn that into a presentation, or vice versa. We often take presentations and turn them into 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 blog posts for a firm, and dig deeper into those. We might carve those out into different articles. And I would say still, roughly 6 or 7 years later, one of the most popular blog posts we've ever done is 21 ways to repurpose your content. And it's still one of our most visited, commented on blogs that we've ever done. But we love repurposing. And I think a lot of firms create it, shelve it, and never do anything else with it. They don't promote it. They don't figure out how they can pull it into something else that they're doing. And that's a huge missed opportunity.
It is, you're right. And a lot of professionals having done in-house accounting and marketing and in-house legal marketing, a lot of professionals will think, okay, I wrote this blog, I'm done, it's finished. Well, a blog can be turned into a media pitch, it can be turned into a presentation, it can be turned into a webinar. There's just so many different ways to repurpose that. Same with a presentation. I remember many times if we would do a tax update, we'd do the PowerPoint and then the PowerPoint would be shelved on the server forever. Well, that's 70 something slides that can turn to so many different types of content. I always love the approach. You write a blog, it starts on your website. You want people to go to your website, right? That's where you're going to get your referrals and your new business. But from there, you're going to farm it out through social media. You're going to pitch it out to the media. There's just so many different ways that you can take one piece of content. It doesn't have to be a blog or a webinar. It could start with a podcast. It could start with a video like this. And there's, you can always get so much more mileage out of it. So if you ever strap for time, repurposing is one of the easiest and best ways to maximize your efforts when it comes to content.
Absolutely. A lot of firms will look at us and say, yeah, that's great, but we don't have anything to write about, right? We don't have time to create custom content, right? That's a whole other challenge, and we can talk about, the best way to do that. But what I generally find is you get a lot of blank stares, and I'm sure a lot of our colleagues would get that too. Like, what do we want to write about, right? And so we've learned over the years to pull the right questions. But what are some of your favorite ways to pull ideas out of folks when we get that, kind of deer in headlights, like, okay, we need a content calendar, and they're thinking, I don't have anything to write about, or, why would somebody want to hear about X, Y, or Z. So what are some of those ways that you do that, Christian? Questions you ask,
Look,
or ideas out?
I think everybody dreams of having that beautiful content calendar. We're going to get audit, tax, consulting, wealth management, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. People want to read about what's going on and what's coming, right? So one of the easiest ways that I've always coached professionals is to say, just give me your top 10 questions that you're getting from clients. If it's a tax partner, say, what are the top 10 things? And it could be from one client, it could be from a group of clients, kind of take an average of it. But as a marketer, it's easy for me to ask that. And then I can go back and research that. And that gives me 10 pieces of content that, as we talk about repurposing, 10 pieces of content could become, 60 or 70 different opportunities to get in front of prospective buyers and clients across multiple channels. And again, too, I brought up the Aretha Franklin because I loved it so much because it got so much traction. Finding something that's topical. There's always something in the news, especially relating to the accounting advisory industry, that you can really even take your evergreen content, or to go really low level, if you're strapped for time, you could go back and take your service line or industry pages, slap and attach it to a trending story of the day.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely one of my favorite ways too, is to ask the questions. The other I always tell any of our clients that we're working with is look at the patterns. What are you doing with your clients right now? Not the compliance piece of it, but even within the compliance, what are you seeing? Or what are some of their pain points? What are they struggling with? Sometimes that's questions. Sometimes it's the psychology sessions that we have with our clients that we're going through with them. So I love this, and I love talking about content. I wish we had more time, but I think we are at time today. But thank you so much for having this conversation. I know that we probably could have gone a whole nother 15 minutes or so on this, but thank you to our audience that's listening. If you have any questions about content, please feel free to reach out to Christian or I, or comment here. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.